Why are none of the families, why are none of the orders that I learned even like 3 years ago the same anymore? This is a question you may be asking yourself if you have tried to learn insect orders or insect families, only to find that shortly after you have just crammed all of that information into your brain, it is now all different. Today, bug friends, we are going to talk about why this happens and why taxonomy is always changing. Let's start with what taxonomy is. Taxonomy is how we like to organize life. So we like to put things into groups and then into smaller groups and then into smaller groups from that. And then you can just work your way all the way down to get to eventually your species. But sometimes these bigger groupings like orders and families will change, move, get obliterated, join others. It's complicated. And that's because taxonomy, like all science, is constantly having technological advancements. We understand things better. We can do more genetic work. We have better computing power. And so much of taxonomy is done like giant computers are just running sets of data for literally weeks or months at a time because our data sets are that big. Generally, with insects, in the past, we have mainly looked at morphological characteristics. So if we can see the characteristic or we can dissect it out, that is how we have been separating the groups out. For example, beetles are all beetles because of the big beetle shell that they have. However, this can lead to some problems. Sometimes within a group, a feature can be completely lost altogether or completely gained. This is true for cockroaches. Termites used to be their own order. They used to, like, termites looked very different and we thought that they were separate and they just belonged by themselves. But as it turns out through a lot of genetic work, we have found out that termites are actually just eusocial cockroaches. And so the order of the termites have been completely obliterated and they have been moved into the order of the cockroaches. Sometimes features that look like they would group a bunch of insects together are actually features that were not derived from the same characteristic or the same ancestral trait. Sometimes these features all kind of pop up because it's convenient for how the insect lives. This is called convergent evolution. An example with fish is that a lot of cave dwelling fish will lose their eyes because it's dark and you don't need eyes to see in the dark. So you'll just have a lot of fish that are actually completely unrelated that have all lost their eyes. And for a long time, people would put them together in the same group because they're like, oh, eyeless fish, they're all probably the same, and they are not. This can also happen in a feature kind of like insects, where a lot of insects don't have wings anymore because they are parasitic. And so like things like fleas and bed bugs don't have their wings anymore. So you could be like, hey, the guys look pretty similar. So because they don't have wings, so we're going to lump them together in the same group, even though that wasn't the correct assumption because they lost their wings at different periods of time. Different genes were used to turn those off, or just it happened from different ancestral groups. I have seen taxonomic changes happen. I learned taxonomy like 10 years ago, and I have seen many, many taxonomic changes in just those 10 years since I have left grad school. And I expect that it will only continue to change more and continue to change more rapidly as our tools, our computing power gets better. Genetic testing and genetic tools are easier to conduct and cheaper to run. And so we're not just relying on looking at some dead specimens or looking at some live specimens anymore. We can use a lot more genetic work and we can put a lot more data into a computer system at a time to give us more correct phylogenies. So it's really important if you're interested in taxonomy or insect identification to keep up with it. People do tend to keep up with it and change the names that they're using depending on the latest literature. So in my What's in a Name series, I expect that in 5 years, I will be making corrections to it, not because the information that I'm giving you today is incorrect by today's standards, but because in 5 years, it will most likely change again.